They warned her, "Don't go to Castle Dracula on the blood moon." But Elena Voss didn't believe in legends until the castle came alive. Deep in the Carpathian Mountains in Romania, perched atop a hill shrouded in mist and legend, stands the ominous Castle Dracula. It's an imposing fortress said to be the home of the infamous Vlad Tepes, also known as Dracula. For centuries, its dark halls have echoed with tales of unspeakable horrors, and the blood moon is its most terrifying night of all. For those brave or foolish enough to venture near the castle on this night, they are treated to a sight that seems ripped from a nightmare. The castle itself seems to come alive, bathed in an eerie red light that spills from every window like blood. And if you listen closely, you can hear the faint sounds of screams and moans carried on the wind. On this night, all of reality seems to twist and warp. Shadows grow long and distorted, taking on a life of their own. The forest surrounding the castle awakens with unnatural sounds, whispering voices that seem to emerge from the trees themselves. On this night, the veil between the worlds is at its thinnest, and the boundary between life and death becomes blurred. But the most terrifying aspect of the blood moon is what it represents. For many, it's a reminder of the darkness that lurks just beneath the surface of our world, a world where monsters walk among us and the boundaries of our reality are tested. And for those who are unfortunate enough to find themselves in the path of the blood moon, it's a night they will never forget. A night when the legends come to life and the nightmares become real. Elena Voss, a doctoral candidate in folklore at Oxford University, had always scoffed at stories of the supernatural. She was a woman of science, of reason and logic, and the idea of vampires and blood moons held no sway over her rational mind. Her interest in Romanian folklore was purely academic. She wanted to understand the stories, the myths and legends, but she never expected them to come alive. Determined to prove that the legends of Dracula were nothing more than superstitious nonsense, Elena decided to spend the night in Castle Dracula on the night of the blood moon. She wanted to experience the supposed horrors firsthand and put an end to these centuries-old myths once and for all. Little did she know that she was about to make a terrible mistake that would change her life forever. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the Romanian countryside, Elena stood before the looming gates of Castle Dracula. The sky was a deep crimson, a harbinger of the night to come. The locals had warned her against coming, had pleaded with her to turn back while she still could. But Elena, with her scientific mind, had dismissed their warnings as the ravings of superstitious peasants. With a deep breath, she pushed open the heavy iron gates and stepped inside. The air grew colder, the silence deeper, and the shadows seemed to press in around her. As night fell, the sky blazed with an eerie red light, the blood moon. Elena found herself enveloped in an atmosphere of dread and foreboding. The wind howled through the crumbling battlements, carrying with it the whispers of centuries past. The castle seemed to stir, to awaken from its slumber, and the very stones seemed to reach out to her, clawing at her with unseen hands. The temperature dropped dramatically, sending a shiver down her spine. Elena realized with a jolt that she was not alone. There was something else in the castle, something she couldn't see, but could feel watching her every move. Her rational mind screamed at her to flee, to escape the suffocating terror of the place. But her feet were rooted to the spot, her gaze fixed on the entrance to the castle's depths. A low growl echoed through the chamber, sending a fresh wave of fear crashing over Elena. She whirled around, searching for the source of the sound, but saw nothing in the gloom. Was it a wild animal? A figment of her imagination, or something more sinister? Then she heard footsteps, heavy, deliberate, echoing in the stone passage behind her. Panic surged through Elena. What was she doing here? Why had she ignored the warnings of the villagers? Now, trapped in the heart of the legend, she understood the true meaning of fear. Driven by a primal instinct for self-preservation, Elena turned and fled, racing through the labyrinthine corridors of the castle. The footsteps pursued her relentlessly, their owner moving with an eerie silence and speed that unnerved her. Each echoing thud of footfall resonated through her bones, amplifying her terror. The chase led her through a series of increasingly narrow passageways, the air growing thick with the scent of dust and decay. As she ran, she could hear the creature breathing heavily behind her, its hot, fetid breath a tangible threat on the nape of her neck. Suddenly, the passage opened into a vast chamber. In the center loomed a massive stone coffin, intricately carved with scenes of unimaginable horror. And there, rising from the shadows, stood the figure she had been fleeing. Its face was pale, almost translucent, its eyes burning embers in the gloom. Fangs glistened on its pale lips, promising a fate worse than death. For Elena, trapped in the heart of the legend, her pursuer emerged from the darkness. Its eyes locked onto hers, and in that moment, she knew she was in the presence of something truly evil. Was it the vampire lord himself, Vlad Tepes, risen from his eternal slumber? Or was it something more sinister, something born of the darkest recesses of the human psyche? Whatever it was, it represented the embodiment of her worst fears, a creature of the night that had stalked her through the castle's shadowy halls, and now awaited her in this chamber of horrors. As the creature advanced, its movements fluid and predatory, Elena's mind raced. She had to escape, to find a way out of this nightmare. But with each step the creature took, hope seemed to dwindle, replaced by the icy grip of terror. Elena, backed into a corner by the looming coffin and the advancing monster, knew that her time was running out. She had stumbled into a world she didn't understand, a world of creatures that defied the laws of nature and reason. And now she had to use all her wit and courage to survive the night. The full moon cast long, distorted shadows on the chamber walls as the creature approached, its eyes gleaming with a hypnotic intensity. Elena could feel its gaze boring into her, stripping away her defenses, exposing her raw terror. The air grew thick with anticipation, the silence broken only by the pounding of her own heart. With a sudden surge of adrenaline, she turned and fled, racing for the exit. She could hear the creature behind her, its heavy footsteps echoing in pursuit. She dared not look back, but she could feel its presence at her heels, relentless, inexorable. Bursting through an open doorway, she found herself in a dark, narrow passageway. The exit had to be near. With renewed determination, she pressed onward, stumbling over uneven stones, her limbs aching, her lungs burning. Just as she thought she might collapse from exhaustion, she saw it, a sliver of light ahead. Pushing with all her strength, she burst into the open air. The night was alive with the scent of pine and damp earth, the sound of crickets chirping. But Elena had no time to appreciate the beauty of the night. She had to get away, to put as much distance between herself and the castle as possible. Without stopping to rest, she plunged into the darkness of the forest, branches whipping at her face, thorns tearing at her clothes. She didn't care. She had to keep moving, had to escape the nightmare that awaited her in the castle. As the first rays of sunlight touched the horizon, Elena stumbled out of the forest, collapsing on the soft grass, her body shaking with exhaustion and fear. The nightmare of the night before seemed like a distant memory, too horrible to be real. Yet the memory of the creature, the fangs, the eyes, the chilling growl, still burned in her mind. What had she experienced in the castle? Was it real or a figment of her imagination? Had she really faced a creature of the night and survived? Elena wasn't sure. But as she looked back at the dark silhouette of the castle against the morning sky, she knew one thing: she would never forget the horrors of that night, the night she spent in Castle Dracula. And as the years passed, she would tell her story, hoping that others would believe her tale of terror, knowing that sometimes the greatest horrors are the ones that lurk just beyond our perception, waiting to be unleashed on the unsuspecting. The blood moon was a warning, a reminder that the line between reality and nightmare is thin, and that sometimes the monsters in our nightmares are all too real.